everyone, this week we will be reviewing the Executive Department or the Governor's Office. Some takeaways from this chapter is to learn the formal and informal qualifications for governor, explain the provisions of succession of the governor or the removal of a governor, learn his formal powers or informal powers. Let's begin with formal qualifications. Formal qualifications to be governor are minimal in most states. All but 3 sets a minimum age. Half require the candidate to have been a resident. Most require them to be a U.S. citizen and qualified voters. Qualifications in Texas are simple. At least 30 years of age, U.S. citizens, and a resident of the state for 5 years preceding election. Formal qualifications. Experience is an important informal qualifications for becoming governor. Having held elected office or having served as an appointed administrator or party official. Most governors have been white, wealthy, well-educated Protestant males. More women have served in recent years. Texas has had 2 female governors, and governors of Texas are generally wealthy and or successful in law, business, or politics. Why? Because they have the opportunity to take off time given the occupation they have. So we tend to see governors who have previously served in statewide offices just filtrate to the governor's office. It's just more easier because you have name recognition if you served in a statewide office. So what happens when a governor is removed? In 45 states, lieutenant governors advance if the governor's office is vacant for any reason. In Texas, the order of succession is as follows: the lieutenant governor, president pro temp of the Texas Senate, and the Speaker of the House, followed by the Attorney General. Lieutenant governors become acting governors, meaning they perform the function of the office. He or she receives the same pay as the governor for however long they serve as acting governor. So if you serve for 1 day, you get the pay for that 1 day of governor. Removal from office. All states except Oregon have the process of impeachment, where the official is accused of an impeachable offense by the lower house. Conviction and removal from office require a 2/3 vote in the Senate. The process is both judicial and political. 16 U.S. governors have been impeached and 9 have been removed from office. Examples are Governor Jim Ferguson of Texas. 19 states, though not Texas, also allow recall, whereby the officials may be removed by voter petition. The following is a picture of James Ferguson, who was the 26th governor of Texas for 3 years until his impeachment in 1917. While the judgment technically prevented him from further public office, he would go on to try for both the governorship and the presidency. The former with his wife as the official candidate. They won governorship in 1924, but they did not win re-election. Formal powers of the governor. Most governors do not have extensive formal powers. Because the voters elect many important state administrators in Texas, the governor's appointive and removal powers are weak. The plural executive system is what governs Texas. This is where the executive power is divided among several statewide elected officials. So Texas votes on lieutenant governors, attorney generals, comptroller of public accounts. We select the state land commissioner, agricultural commissioner, railroad commissioner, and the state board of education. These are all at-large statewide elections. So this is what I mean by statewide offices. So if you sit in one of these previous offices before you, then you have or are in a good position to run for the governorship because you have name recognition held by a state office. Other formal powers. The Attorney General in Texas serves as a legal counsel to the governor, legislature, and most other agencies, boards, and commissions. The AG or Attorney General is also an important stepping stone to the governor's office. The Comptroller of Public Accounts currently functions as the chief fiscal and revenue forecasting office. The comptroller is responsible for collecting many taxes and fees and for investing state funds. In many states, the term is controller. The Commissioner of General Land Office, or the Land Commissioner, is responsible for leasing state lands and general funds from oil and gas production. The Commissioner of the Texas Department of Agriculture promotes and regulates agriculture and also protects the public from unsafe practices. The primary function of a Texas Railroad Commissioner or Commission today is the regulation of oil and gas. 3 members elected for 6-year staggered terms to keep the process and policies moving smoothly in these agencies. The State Board of Education is the governing body for public elementary and secondary education in the state. Currently, 15 members serve. They're elected. The board nominates a person to the governor to be the Commissioner of Education. The authority of the State Board has been greatly reduced in recent years, with infighting among members leading to the removal of several functions, most significantly the selection of textbooks. One main issue has been the teaching of evolution in biology classes. Tenure in office is another indication of formal powers. Tenure of office is both the legal ability of governors to succeed themselves in office and the term length. Many southern states once prohibited the governor from consecutive terms. Virginia is the only one to continue. Longer tenure gives governors greater influence and time to carry out their programs. Especially longer tenure allows governors to build up associations in other states and in Washington. The Texas governor has the strongest tenure, 4-year terms with no limit on the number of terms. Formal powers are also measured by the appointive powers. Governors who can control head of state agencies have better control over state programs. Texas's traditionalistic political culture does not support the idea of a strong executive authority. Several agency heads are elected rather than appointed. Some appointments are subject to approval by 2/3 vote of the Senate. Among other limiting factors is the senatorial courtesy, which demands the governor clear an appointment with the state senator from the appointee's home district. This slide reflects the administrative structure of the plural executive. First, you have the election of statewide offices that we've already mentioned. Then you have agency heads that are appointed by the governor, followed by boards and commissions. So this is the 3 heads, if you will, or the plural executive in Texas. The formal powers of the governor are also measured by the ability of his appointments. The Secretary of State is the chief election official that keeps state records and handles international protocol. The Commissioner for Health and Human Services has oversight responsibility for 8 health and welfare programs. The Executive Director of the Office of State-Federal Relations oversees relations between state and federal officials. The Adjutant General of National Guard heads the state military force under the direction of the governor. The governor's limited military powers came into play only in times of natural disaster or civil unrest. The size of the National Guard is determined and funded by Congress as a reserve force to the regular army. The governor appoints the heads of state over other agencies and commissions. The governor also appoints about 1,500 members to 302 state boards and commissions that carry out most of the work of the state government. Most operate independently from other state agencies, meaning state government in Texas is decentralized. They include 38 separate professional licensing and examining boards and 12 college governing boards. It's not uncommon for the governor to appoint campaign supporters to governing boards and commissions. Equally important to the governor's appointive power is the power to remove administrators. In Texas, the removal power of the governor is very weak. Governors may remove a person they personally appointed with a 2/3 vote of the Senate. Governors may not remove any of their predecessors' appointees. Although governors can force a person's resignation, the political costs can be high. Certain constraints can undercut a governor's budgetary powers. Whether government formation and execution are shared with the legislature or other state agencies, earmarks and other limitations on spending, limits on the governor's ability to use line item veto. Except in the area of the line item veto, in Texas, the governor's budgetary powers are weak. Budget requests must be presented to the Legislative Budget Board. Now, this is the legislature's budgeting committee, okay? So we have two budgeting committees. One, the governor draws up his own wish list of things that he would like to spend money on in the state. And then you have the legislatures. So more often than not, the legislative budget is the one that's passed because they have oversight of making laws, so they know what they have to spend. So more than 80% of all the funds are earmarked, which means they're already designated to go to some policy. With the line item veto, the Texas governor can veto part of an appropriation bill without vetoing the entire bill. The legislature can override by a 2/3 vote of each house, but typically the legislature has adjourned by the time the governor vetoes the items. More important than the actual veto is the threat of a veto, which governors have historically used to discipline the legislature and gain support for items important to the governor. Legislative power is the power to force the legislature to enact the governor's legislation. 40 states have formalized partial vetoes, which apply to non-appropriation bills. The Texas governor does not have this power, but can still state objections to a bill before it's passed. The Texas governor has very strong veto authority. In Texas and 14 other states, the legislature may not call extraordinary sessions, limiting the ability to accomplish a 2/3 override. The Texas governor does not, however, have a pocket veto. Given the 6 indicators of power, the Texas governor is comparatively weak in formal powers. Indicators: elections of other statewide office executives, tenure of office, governor's appointive powers, budgetary powers, veto powers, and the governor's control over the party. The Texas governors must make use of all their informal powers of persuasion and political skills to be successful. Informal powers. The governor is the most visible office holder in the state and can command the attention of the media. Governors who rank high in popularity polls can more easily overcome opposition. Governors are judged on their leadership abilities and the characterization attached to a governor that will affect his or her abilities. The power and prestige of the office have increased in recent times, and that's kind of due to media. As chief legislator, the governor formulates long-term policy goals and objectives. As party chief, the governor leads the party and aids its development and growth. The governor has ceremonial duties and can use these to promote his or her programs. The governor must avoid a ceremonial trap in which ceremonial functions divert them from other objectives. The governor also acts as a crisis manager and chief intergovernmental coordinator. Even though governors in most states do not have much formal power, the governor has great importance in the state politics. In Texas, the governor's lack of formal power makes the task of governing such a large, diverse, and economically important state challenging. Thanks for listening.